I can't believe you made this, my mom said, looking disgusted. I was sitting in my playroom one afternoon, just finishing off a painting of my mom's favorite yellow flower. I made it for you, Mommy, I said, handing it to her. And what am I supposed to do with this garbage? She asked. I started to cry as my mom tossed the painting into the fireplace. You draw like an idiot. What do you expect? Ugh, just go to your room. You're acting like a 5-year-old. But I am 5, I cried as my mom left me all alone in the room. This pretty much sums up the relationship I have with my mom. While this memory is still stuck in my head forever, it wasn't even close to the worst thing I can remember her doing. See, my mom treated me like complete trash. Literally, I slept on a blanket in the living room and only ate the leftovers from her meals. She was a crazy psycho, and to make things worse, she didn't have a career back then. Her only job was torturing me as if she were getting paid for it. Her crazy ways chased my dad far away from us. He sent us enough money to live off of and left me all alone with this monster. It's not that she hated all kids, though. In fact, this kind of made it a bit worse. When I was in 6th grade, my friend came over and my mom opened the door. Oh, you're friends with this stupid creature? She treated my friend better than me. She even let my friend sit at the dining room table for dinner. My friend thought my mom was cool and funny, and they both kind of teamed up on me. When I confronted my mom about why she acted the way she did, she simply said, "Be more like your friend, and maybe I won't hate you." I really tried to make her like me, I promise. I did good in school, never got into trouble, constantly did all the chores, and bought her gifts. One day when I was cleaning her room for her, I really thought my life was going to turn around for the better. Spoiler alert, I couldn't have been more wrong. Under my mom's bed, I found a gift box. My birthday was that weekend, so I just assumed it was for me. I was so excited. On my birthday, she took out the package and started walking towards me. I was crying with happiness, thinking it was for me. When she asked why I was crying like an idiot, I explained that this was the first time she'd ever acknowledged my birthday. She started to laugh. Not in a nice way, but like a supervillain. Your birthday? This is for a friend, you fool. Her birthday party is today. I guess you didn't get the invitation, she said. Later on Facebook, I saw that my friend actually had a party and invited everyone but me. She even invited my mom. I spent my whole birthday crying in my room, all alone. When I was in the 11th grade, my dad stopped sending us money. He had a new wife and a baby. He sent me an apology note and said that he would see me soon, but I knew it wasn't true. I figured my mom would find a job, but she did something crazy unexpected. See, I came home one day and saw this beautiful woman sitting in my living room. I asked her what she was doing in my house, and she said in a foreign accent, "Oh, your mom was right. She does have an ugly daughter," she said. I yelled at her and told her that she had to leave. That's when my mom came in and asked what all of the screaming was about. I tried to tell my mom how the stranger was making fun of me. Her response? "That's no way to treat my girlfriend. You really are rude," Mom yelled. Girlfriend? She ran over and put her arm around the gorgeous woman. My mom explained how she had realized she was a lesbian and she'd fallen in love with a graduate student she met at the park. The girl's parents were incredibly rich, and apparently my mom took the opportunity to get with her. I didn't know how dumb that girl was. She was 15 years younger than my mom, and they seemed to have nothing in common. Nothing in common besides making fun of me, of course. I thought my mom was bad, but having both of them constantly making fun of me was so much worse. They called me names, stole my stuff, and embarrassed me in front of my classmates. I remember this one time in particular, my mom and her girlfriend drove to my school after class. They made it seem like they were going to pick me up, which was not something they normally did. When I got near the car, her girlfriend threw a soda on my white shirt, and they laughed and drove away. Everyone in my school saw, and not a single person came to help me. I just ran home, crying the entire way. I may not have had friends or family, but I did have one thing: education. I know a lot of people hate school, but class was the only time I ever felt like a person. There was one person who made it particularly special: my math teacher, Mr. White. He was super nice to me, and I did very well in his class. He said, "You're a brilliant kid. I'm sure your mom is proud of you." Oh yeah, exactly the opposite. I continued to do super well in his class. In the beginning, it was because I really liked math. As time went on, I think I worked so hard in his class because he was easy on the eyes, if you know what I mean. He wasn't the most attractive man, but he was young and nerdy, and most of all, super nice to me. When he asked me to compete in an international math competition, I immediately agreed. A private trip to NYC with my biggest crush? Sign me up. I figured my mom would be happy to get me out of the house, but apparently she was happier to see my dreams crushed. She told me no, and it didn't matter how much I begged her. I wrote my teacher a sad email explaining that I couldn't come. What happened next started out like a fantasy. See, around 7 p.m., we heard a knock at the door. I ran over to answer it, and it was him. I'd never seen him outside of a suit and tie, and I have to say, he was actually really attractive. Unfortunately, I wasn't the only one to think so. My mom was all over him. She was only wearing her pajamas and had no shame touching him and leaning over him. As it turns out, I wasn't the only one getting a little jealous seeing their love getting attention. My stepmom was furious. She kept trying to pull my mom away and cover her up with a blanket. It was also obvious that Mr. White wasn't very interested in her, and he kept nervously stepping back. Eventually, my stepmom snapped and yelled, "Honey, you're embarrassing all of us. Leave that poor kid alone. You have a wife." My mom flipped out and growled at my stepmom. "Shut up, stupid." As their fighting continued, Mr. White slipped outside. So much for our getaway. Things only got worse with my mom and stepmom over the weeks following. Their fighting just made it even more difficult for me. When they weren't yelling and throwing things at each other, they would make my life miserable for no reason. The only thing I had to look forward to was Mr. White. I was falling hard, maybe a little too hard, because I started dreaming about him. One night, I had a dream that he and I got married. Pretty embarrassing, right? At least dreams are private, right? Well, the next day, my mom had an evil grin and called me over to talk to her. She pulled out her phone and showed a video of me sleeping. I thought it was creepy, but it was about to be the worst thing ever. "Oh, I love you, Rick White. I really do. I want your babies." She had heard me sleeping and recorded me. Unfortunately, I wasn't the only one in love with Mr. White. She blackmailed me and said that I needed to make the teacher come over more often or she would expose me. It was pretty difficult to convince my teacher to come, but I kept making up situations like, "Oh, I need help with this assignment," or "Oh, I want extra credit." He showed up again, and every time he did, my mom would put on her prettiest dress and bright red lipstick. It was the same cycle of him coming, my mom obviously flirting, and her wife getting jealous and angry. When my stepmom asked why I kept inviting him, I broke down and told her the truth about the video. All she said was that she would take care of it. I thought that meant that she would delete it, but I was so wrong. The final time my teacher came over and my mom started flirting, my stepmom whipped out her phone and showed the video of me to my teacher. I could have died right there of embarrassment. My mom got so angry, she threw me right out of there. I was crying hard, but Mr. White was oddly nice. He explained to me that we didn't need to talk about the video. He knew I was having some home problems after he met my parents. He wanted to let me know that I could stay with him if I wanted to. Embarrassed or not, I went with him. I started fantasizing about playing house with him, but I was a little shocked when he showed me my room. It was in the basement. At least it had a bed, which was a step above my last arrangement. To make matters worse, I wasn't alone. I would be sharing the room with Sally. She was another stray that Mr. White had taken in. She didn't go to our school, but we were about the same age. She purposely played her music loud all night and made a mess of my things. She was trying to make my life miserable, but the joke was on her because I already knew what hell was like, and she was a piece of cake so far. I tried my best to look past everything that had happened. I worked very hard and studied for finals. It was kind of difficult with my mom sending me hundreds of threatening texts a day, but I made it work. In fact, my grades were even improving. Mr. White constantly told me how proud he was of me and what an amazing student I was. He told me that Sally could learn a thing or two about my work ethic. She was not happy about that. It was pretty obvious that Sally was jealous of me. See, she was one of those people who acted out for attention, and Mr. White didn't respond the way she wanted. On the day of my huge final exam, she turned off my phone so the alarm didn't ring, and I missed school and the exam. I was so disappointed and devastated. I knew Mr. White wouldn't be happy about it. That night, someone knocked on the door. It was my stepmom. She said she needed help with her English exam because spending all these months with my mom had affected her performance. I should have turned her away after everything she'd done, but I was better than that. I agreed to start teaching her the next day. A second knock at the door took me by surprise. It was none other than Mr. White. Before I could explain what had happened, he went off on a rant about how Sally already explained how I skipped school and did all these horrible things. He wanted to believe that I was a good girl, but it was clear that I was just a rebel. I had only one strike left before he kicked me out. He shut the door in my face before I could explain the situation. I figured it wouldn't be a problem because I was a good student. I was about to be shocked again by Sally's creativity. See, the very next day, when I had my stepmom over for lessons, Mr. White came in and threw me out. Apparently, Sally had told him I was sitting alone in my room with my girlfriend and was making noises, and she was scared. We both knew what she meant to say. That night, I was sent packing all alone. I stayed with my stepmom in her studio apartment for a few days, but it was awkward, and it was time to address the elephant in the room. I decided to go back to my mom. To my surprise, she wasn't angry and didn't say anything to me. I decided to focus on my studies, and I got the scholarship, but Mom was absent almost all the time. Mr. White contacted me and said he wanted me back and that Sally had actually become a problem and he'd realized I was better. There was something creepy about the way he said it. I also thought it was such a jerk move to take kids in and out as he pleased. How long would his kindness last? I said, "Sorry, I'm happy with my life now, and I'll be going to college soon." I was moving to college the week after when Mom suddenly came home with a guest. I couldn't see them, only hear them. The man said, "She has to leave." Mom burst into my room and said, "It's your dad. He wants you to leave now." It turned out that Dad had left Mom because he didn't want kids, and he thought a new baby would be different, but he hated his new life. He knew I was old enough to move out by now, so he had shown back up to reunite with my mom. I didn't know where to go. I went to my stepmom's and found Sally there. She had started to live with my stepmom after the teacher kicked her out. She was my stepmom's new teacher and helped her with her English. Sally was furious when she saw me, and we got into a huge fight. I couldn't have this horrible fighting be in my life again, so I walked out. I slept that night on the steps outside of the house. In the morning, Mom called and told me, "Your dad and I have decided to have you back, but under one condition. You have to get a job and pay me back every cent I spent on you." I was about to say yes when I looked up to see a job poster. Accountant wanted. I knew it was my chance. I said on the phone, "Screw you guys." I applied for the job and got it. I even managed to enroll in college and found the love of my life. We moved into an amazing house, and I thought my life was finally perfect, until one day, the bell rang. It was my mom. She said that she was broke, and Dad had left her again. She needed a place to stay, so, against my better judgment, I let her move in. For 3 days, she behaved nicely, but on the 4th, I saw her in her pretty dress and red lipstick trying to flirt with my poor husband. She was batting her eyelashes at him and laughing the way I remembered only too well. Was she already doing this to me again? I couldn't stand it anymore. I'd had enough. I opened the door and kicked her out. If she was going to behave like that, she belonged on the streets, and that's where she could stay.